If there's one manufacturer that could be called a victim of its own success these days, it's that famously cloaked in red brand of Ducati. The last 7 years have been firmly about Ducati's Desmosedici Stradale V4 and all the bikes it powers, like the Panigale, Street Fighter, Diavel, and yes, the Multistrada. And the machine that was previously badged as the Multistrada 950, which was slightly updated for 2022, it kind of became a bit out of sight and out of mind with regards to potential customers. That's changed for 2025 as we have a new mid-sized Ducati Multistrada V2. It'll cost you $19,295 MSRP at your dealer, which is a $4,000 premium over the base model Multistrada V2, but you won't get the S's Ducati Skyhook electronic suspension. Ducati has dropped the capacity from 937cc down to 890cc, and somewhat controversially, they've dropped the trademark Desmo valve actuation system that's been on every Ducati V-twin since God was a wee lad, having now moved instead to a variable valve timing system. Ducati is claiming 115 horsepower and 68 pounds-feet of torque with the new V2, which represents an inconsequential 2 horsepower gain and 3 pounds-feet drop over the old Multistrada 950. Crucially, however, this is the lightest Ducati V-twin ever made, the engineers casting the cylinder head and the crankcase as one unit, which weighs 121 pounds, and that represents a drop of 12.7 pounds over the old 950 motor. With this new motor, Ducati's fitted a 20% heavier flywheel to make it more tractable at lower RPM, and they've combined this with a new air intake bypass circuit that bleeds in a little air to smooth out the throttle response during ultra low RPM and low speed riding. You've got 5 riding modes with the new V2 in Sport, Touring, Urban, Enduro and Wet, 4 power modes in High, Medium, Low or Off-Road, plus 2 throttle responses in Dynamic and Smooth. The new motor is paired to a completely new chassis and the aluminum monocoque mainframe mated to a new steel trellis subframe. Weight saving was the name of the game here. Combined with the lighter motor, the V2 Multi weighs a claimed 40 pounds less than the old 950. That is a substantial weight reduction in an age where 5 to 10 pounds drop is noticeable, let alone 40 pounds. The S model gains the latest generation Ducati Skyhook suspension for the Marzocchi fork and Showa shock, with 4 different modes in Dynamic, Comfort, Road and Low Grip, which is basically a rain mode. Whereas before the suspension was linked to your individual riding mode, now it can be altered separately, regardless of what mode you're in. Also, the suspension includes an 8mm lowering function similar to what's available on the Harley-Davidson Pan America. The all-important rider triangle has been slightly altered, with the same handlebar positioning mated to a higher re-sculpted seat to alleviate some of the bend in your knees and promote blood flow over long rides. There's various accessories you can get in the touring department, including a 20mm taller and a 20mm lower seat. Plus, if you've got a really short inseam, you can opt for the lower suspension kit that takes things down another 20mm. The seat heights range from 31.1 to 34.3 inches, so you're sure to find something that fits. We headed to a rather chilly and windy Valencia on Spain's east coast to give Ducati's new touring steed a sample. Right, so that was a pretty thrilling day on the 2025 Ducati Multistrada V2. As you heard in the tech section, all new motorcycle pretty much for this iteration. New frame, new engine, a whole lot. And so we don't have to dive too much into the tech stuff because we've already done all that. Ride impressions. Really enjoyable. It had been 6 years, I think, since I last rode the previous Multistrada V2. I've done so many miles on the V4 in all its iterations that I had sort of forgotten a little bit about the junior one. And I think, honestly, too, a lot of the public has as well. There's been so much hype around the V4 that the old V2 sort of got left by the wayside a little bit, but Ducati is now putting the effort back into its mid-range, and it's really good to see. So they've done a magnificent job. Okay, so talking about the motor, as you heard just before, this motor does not come with the trademark Ducati Desmo valve system. Now that saves a little bit of weight, obviously, a little bit less complexity, but it does change the character of the engine somewhat. It has a much more sedate initial power delivery. One of the big changes with the air intake system that you heard of in the tech presentation just before, that made a huge difference to around town traffic. Now you've got 4 riding modes, or 5 riding modes actually, but when you go up progressively up and up through the modes, that initial sort of throttle response doesn't really seem to matter that much. It's only when you get into the sport mode that you can really feel it, because obviously with Euro 5 emissions, when you get into the high power modes, the throttle response can get quite jerky, and we're talking 1700 to sort of 2000, 2100 RPM, all that stuff when you're coming out passing cars and car parks and things like that. And it's now much more manageable power delivery. Yeah, really easy to get the most out of. So well done for Ducati, because that was a glaring kind of omission that the old V-twin used to have. With the new gearbox too, shorter first gear and longer sixth gear. The sixth gear is really noticeable. It's basically an overdrive now, the sixth gear. You can check that thing in the sixth gear, down the freeway, you're doing 3,500 or so RPM at 110, 120k an hour, so around 65 or so mile an hour. It's crazy smooth. Like, it just feels like a magic carpet ride at that speed. So that's a nice little thing that Ducati's managed to pull off there. So the 890, this is the lightest V-twin that Ducati has ever made. So when you think about how long Ducati's been making V-twin engines for, it's pretty cool to have such a game-changing leap in terms of just the overall weight of the motor. It spins up really, really quickly. If you want to get jiggy with it, it will do it very, very quickly. You can stick that thing in basically touring or sport mode. In the lower modes, it doesn't quite rev as fast. Obviously, you've got a softer throttle response, but put it in sport mode, and if you want to wick it up, it really does go. It'll do wheelies very, very easily, as I found out. I switched the wheelie control off. So that's a nice factor as well. But the good thing is the power and the torque now is very, very tractable. You can stick the thing in fourth gear if you want. You can just lug the thing from corner to corner, and it's lovely. But if you want to get your sport bike on, you can rev the thing right out, and it'll get to the top of the rev range in 10,000 RPM very, very quickly. And when you're up in those higher revs in the lower gears as well, you don't have anything like the vibrations that the old V-twin Multistrada used to have. I mean, that thing would rattle pretty hard when you got the thing revved right up in the ranges, but now it's a lot more enjoyable, I think, to ride. Mixed in with all the various riding aids and traction control and wheelie control and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a really good thing, this new motor. Speaking of which, talking about weight, 40 pounds. That's what this Multistrada has had lopped off it compared to the old one. Now, 40 pounds is a hell of a lot of weight. You can go to the gym and get a couple of dumbbells and stick them on the back of your bike, and you'll notice it. You really will. And now, with that 40 pounds gone, the initial turn in is so much lighter. You don't have to put in anywhere near the effort to get the bike to turn in to do what you want. It's very, very well balanced as well. Like, the Multistrada has always been one of those bikes that sort of sits perfectly, almost 50-50. I'm not entirely sure of the weight distribution, but it feels like it's bang on. Like, you don't have any more overly forward or overly rear weight bias. So it's just lovely in corners. It just carves beautiful lines and very, very easy. It's a big dirt bike of a thing. So the range in your ride position is, it's perfect for someone of my height. I'm 6'1", so for me this is the ideal kind of level of ride position. The seat height's been slightly raised in that regard. So the Ducati's helped you take a little bit of weight off your lower back, really, and also let your knees extend up just a bit. And I have terrible knees after years of crashing and road race bikes, so to me I felt great. I mean, we did as I say, it was about 150 or so miles today, but we were on the bikes at 8:30. We just got off at 4 with an hour lunch break in between, and I feel fantastic. So yeah, kudos to Ducati for that. The rider triangle and the ergonomics is hugely important, and a lot of manufacturers can kind of overlook that a little bit, but this is a touring bike and you need to be comfortable if you're going to be doing those big long rides. Now at $20,000 basically on the dot, and this is obviously before you get out with your dealer charges and taxes and whatever else, so I can't give you a full price. Couple of things that aren't great. I would have assumed really that this particular model, the S model, would have come with heated hand grips. I just think that's a given, and the fact that you have to buy them as an accessory on a $20,000 bike I think is not good enough. So hopefully Ducati will sort that out in the future. The new switch block as well, the new switch arrangements I found really
annoying on, I've got these Alpine Stars winter gloves. Probably if you got summer gloves, it's not going to be so bad, but this little switch block here, I couldn't really operate as easily as I would have liked. So that's just another little nitpicking thing that if I owned it, I'm sure it would drive me a little bit more nuts than what it originally did. Now this S model also comes with the Ducati Skyhook suspension. If you go and buy the standard model, you get conventionally adjusted suspension, but it's a $4,000 difference. So you would think with $4,000 you'd be getting more than just the suspension. And we didn't ride the standard bike, so I can't tell you how the ride quality is between the two of them. I mean, Ducati Skyhook electronically adjustable suspension has been around now for eons. I mean, I think they came out in 2012 or 2013 or something or other with the Multistrada back then. So they've had a long time to get this right, and I can't fault it personally. Like one of the good things about the new system, at least with the Skyhook, is that you've got the mode button up here, so you can adjust the suspension independently of your ride modes. Previously, the ride modes and the suspensions were linked. Now you can get in there and change everything all sort of on its own. Which is also good because now that I think about it, you can actually change everything in all the modes. So it's not like they have a rider mode where some manufacturers will have preset modes within, and that's their mode, and then you have a rider mode that you can change and have that how you want. With the Multistrada, you can change every mode as it is. So if your wet mode is, you know, high traction control, no wheelie control, whatever it is that you want, you've now effectively got 5 adjustable riding modes rather than just one. So that's a good little thing too. Right, so the Multistrada's coming in pretty hot. You know, it's going to be going up against some pretty stiff competition, especially from Japan, because Japan has really started to hook into that sort of mid capacity touring market. I mean, first bike for me that comes to mind is the brilliant Yamaha Tracer 9 GT. That this is pretty much going to go head to head. Obviously at different wheel sizes, but let's be honest, like they're pretty much going to be going after the same customer. I think with $4,000 extra for just the Ducati Skyhook, I was kind of hoping a little bit more than that. Also, in Europe, you can buy trim packages with this thing, but we can't buy them in America. So that's a bit of a bummer, really. It's like you'll buy your Multistrada, and then you're going to buy your quick shifter, then you're going to get your cruise control and whatnot. Like a lot of manufacturers, they'll probably come optioned up at the dealership. You know, whether that is your flavor or not, I'm sure you'll still be able to buy one as a stocker and then just add bits on as they go. But yeah, it would have been nice if we had that option where we had preset packages in there. Unfortunately, we didn't get to ride a bike with luggage today, so I can't really explain to you how the handling feels when you're loaded up with all the kind of luggage and things like that. But one other thing before I go, the new suspension, the Ducati Skyhook suspension, it's got a 8mm lowering device. Now, this preset, like preload lowering is not really new. I mean, Harley Davidson were the first ones that came out with it with a Pan America. 8mm doesn't do much, let's be honest. Like, I tried it, and you can feel it. It definitely sinks a little bit, but for somebody that's probably, you know, maybe 5'8", 5'9", it's not going to make a lot of difference. If you do have the thing loaded up and you've got somebody on the back, it'll actually sink a little bit more than 8mm. But when some manufacturers are out there are pushing an inch and a half in terms of its lowering, I would have thought Ducati could have done a little bit better with that. Anyway, back to the ride. It is a wonderful motorcycle. It does feel exactly like a Ducati Multistrada, just enhanced. You know, the lack of weight is a really, really big thing. The ability to change the suspension modes on the S model, that's another really cool thing. New dash as well. The switch block is a little bit annoying, but great little engine on it. You know, 890cc motor, and it's really smooth. You know, those old days of sort of lumpy feeling, sort of almost like the big cam feeling that you get in big block engines. That lumpy feeling that the Desmo sort of had, that's gone now. It's very smooth, velvety power delivery. So it's definitely going to carry this bike into the future. But anyway, guys, that's a quick wrap up. If you guys like this, please give us a like and subscribe, and leave your comments below. I will do my very best to get back to you with any questions that you may have. Until next time, keep your rubber side down. I'll see you then. Cheers.